This is a Local 3 News special presentation. Veterans Voices, a salute to those who served. Sponsored by Fish and Hunt Shop. Supported by these Upper Peninsula businesses.
Welcome to what we're calling Veterans Voices, a half hour dedicated to honoring those who served. I'm Cynthia Thompson.
And I'm James Fillmore. Over the next half hour, we will highlight some of the many ways the Upper Peninsula honors veterans. We begin with a story that spans decades.
Our first special report tonight is a story that many other families are hoping they can one day tell as well.
Local 3's Rebecca Bartolome has the story of an Upper Peninsula native who died at Pearl Harbor and finally came home to the UP in July.
Ontonagon native Lowell Earl Valley was a Navy fireman second class when he was killed at Pearl Harbor December 7, 1941.
In school, he was an altar boy. He delivered groceries for the local market basket in Ontonagon. He was on the high school track team. He was a high hurdler. And before he graduated, he talked about he wanted to join the Navy.
And Lowell followed that dream. He reported for duty on the USS Oklahoma on June 7, 1941. Exactly 6 months later, the ship was hit by torpedoes during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Lowell was 19 years old. His brother Bob was 8.
So I went to the matinee. When I come home that afternoon, my parents were sitting around the radio. They didn't have TV back then. Sitting around the radio listening to the attack on Pearl Harbor. And they kind of shifted me off to a neighbor's house to get me away, I guess. A telegram came on just before Christmas saying that he was missing in action. The final telegram came on my birthday, February 20th, 1942, saying that he had lost his life.
Lowell was one of 429 sailors and Marines killed on the USS Oklahoma. 35 were identified. The other 394 became missing in action or unknowns.
The ship stayed in the water until 1943. At that time, they took remains off the ship, buried the remains in 2 naval cemeteries in Honolulu. Then in 1949, when they created the Punch Bowl, which is the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, at that time they disinterred the graves of the remains in the 2 naval cemeteries, transferred them to the Punch Bowl.
At one point, it was recommended that 27 of the casualties be given individual identification because they could be identified through dental records. But that didn't happen, and they were buried as unknowns.
In 2002, we discovered this, about those 27 that were actually identified once and were buried in the Punch Bowl. So then we started trying to get those 27 re-identified.
After 5 years, no identifications were made, and that's when Bob got more involved. He was asked to find the relatives of the 27 casualties, and that was only the beginning. Just 3 years ago, crews started the process to identify all of the casualties from the USS Oklahoma.
To date, we have 134 now that have been identified, and it's ongoing.
On January 19th of this year, Bob got his phone call that so many families in this case long for. After 77 years, Fireman Second Class Lowell Earl Valley of Ontonagon had been identified.
The first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." I had not dreamed that he was going to be one.
Lowell was laid to rest in his hometown of Ontonagon in July.
It's not something that happened, like yesterday. I mean, I've been involved in this for so many years that it's not a complete surprise. I did not realize or think that it would actually come to this where my brother would be identified. I was only working on these 27, but it was really sweet to find out that they were going to do all the casualties, and luckily they got my brother identified.
We'll be back with Veterans Voices honoring those who serve in just a moment.
When we come back, we'll talk about the UP Honor Flight, find out what it is, and get a glimpse inside Mission 15.